The massive chamber on Nexus Prime felt cold and hostile as Ambassador Jake Morrison stood in the center of the circular room. 12 different alien species sat in their elevated seats, looking down at him, like judges deciding the fate of a criminal. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that made every sound echo strangely. Jake had been standing here for hours while the council debated humanity's future. Speaker Zethkar of the Vorthic species rose from his seat. His reptilian features showed no emotion as he looked down at Jake. A translator device made his voice sound mechanical and harsh. Ambassador Morrison of Earth, Zethkar began. The Galactic Council has reached its decision regarding humanity's membership and future expansion rights. Jake felt his heart beating faster, but kept his face calm. Behind him sat the other human delegates who had come to defend their species. Dr. Maya Singh gripped her data pad tightly. General Carl Davis sat perfectly still in his military uniform. They had all known this moment would come, but nobody was ready for it. For 3 months we have examined the evidence, Zethkar continued. We have studied your species' history, your military actions, and your rapid technological development. The Council finds humanity guilty of aggressive expansion beyond acceptable limits, the Saurian representative hissed softly. Your kind spreads like a disease across space. In only 50 years since first contact, humans have established colonies in 12 different star systems. This expansion rate is dangerous and threatens galactic stability. Jake wanted to argue, but the rules forbade him from speaking until given permission. He watched as more alien faces turned toward him with what looked like fear and disgust. The blue-skinned Zephyrians whispered among themselves. The insect-like Montari clicked their mandibles in what he had learned meant disapproval. Furthermore, added the hegemony representative, humanity's military advancement poses a significant threat to peaceful coexistence. Your weapons technology has advanced at an alarming rate. Your soldiers show a disturbing willingness to use violence as a first solution rather than diplomacy. Dr. Singh shifted in her seat. She had spent years studying these species and their cultures. Most of them had remained technologically stagnant for thousands of years. They feared change and innovation above everything else. The Council also notes, Zethkar said, humanity's unpredictable nature and refusal to follow established galactic protocols. Your scientists conduct dangerous experiments without proper authorization. Your explorers venture into forbidden zones. Your leaders make decisions without consulting this body. Jake finally received permission to speak. He stepped forward and looked up at the assembled aliens. Honored council members, he began, humanity seeks only to grow and learn. We explore because discovery drives us forward. We innovate because standing still means death. Our expansion has been peaceful. We have not attacked any council species or violated any treaties. That is exactly the problem, interrupted the Vorthic speaker. Your species does not understand the concept of limits. Every other species in this galaxy has learned to accept their place and function within the established order. Humans refuse to accept any boundaries. The trial had been a sham from the beginning. Jake realized that now. The Council had already made their decision before the first day of hearings. They feared humanity not because humans were violent or dangerous, but because they represented something these ancient species had forgotten how to be: ambitious. The Galactic Council hereby expels humanity from membership, Zethkar announced. All human colonies beyond the Sol system must be abandoned within 1 standard year. All trade agreements with Council species are terminated immediately. No human vessel may travel beyond the boundaries of your home system without explicit Council permission. The words hit Jake like physical blows. Around the chamber, alien representatives nodded in approval. Some looked relieved. Others seemed almost eager to see humanity punished. Any violation of these restrictions will be met with military force, added the Saurian. The Council fleet will enforce this quarantine indefinitely. Jake wanted to shout, to argue, to make them understand that they were making a terrible mistake. Instead, he simply nodded and gathered his papers. The other human delegates followed him out of the chamber in silence. Behind them, the aliens began discussing other business, as if humanity had already ceased to exist. The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks. Jake spent most of it in his quarters writing his report and trying to figure out how to explain this disaster to the people back home. Dr. Singh worked frantically on her analysis of council psychology and behavior patterns. General Davis remained silent, but Jake could see the anger burning in his eyes. When they arrived at Earth, President Lisa Hamilton was waiting for them at the spaceport. She was a tall woman with gray hair and tired eyes who had spent her entire presidency trying to maintain good relations with the alien council. Now all of that work had been destroyed. "How bad is it?" she asked as they walked toward the government transport. "Complete expulsion," Jake replied. "They want us locked in our own system like prisoners. No trade, no expansion, no contact." President Hamilton closed her eyes for a moment. "I'll need to address the nation tonight. The whole world will want to know what this means for our future." That evening, billions of humans watched as their president stood before the cameras in the Oval Office. Her words were carefully chosen, but her meaning was clear. "My fellow citizens," she began, "today humanity stands alone in the galaxy. The Galactic Council has chosen to expel us from their organization based on fear rather than facts. They claim we are too aggressive, too unpredictable, too willing to push boundaries." She paused and looked directly into the camera. "Perhaps they are right. Perhaps we are different from the other species who have chosen to accept limits and restrictions. Perhaps we do refuse to stay in our assigned place." President Hamilton's voice grew stronger. "But I say to you tonight that humanity's greatest strength has always been our refusal to accept that something cannot be done. When they tell us we cannot explore, we build better ships. When they tell us we cannot grow, we find new worlds. When they tell us we are alone, we prove that we are strong enough to stand by ourselves." The speech continued for 20 minutes. But the message was simple. Humanity would not accept this judgment. They would not crawl back into their hole and wait for the council to decide their fate. General Davis met with his top officers the next morning. The Solar Defense Force had been designed to protect Earth and its colonies from external threats. Now they faced the possibility of fighting the entire galaxy. "Sir," asked Admiral Beth Parker, "what are our orders if council ships try to enforce the quarantine?" Davis looked out the window at the orbital defense platforms surrounding Earth. "We defend ourselves by any means necessary. If they want to keep us caged, they'll have to break us first." Dr. Singh made a different kind of discovery in her laboratory. Hidden in the council records she had been allowed to access were references to other species who had been expelled or eliminated over the past 1,000 years. 17 different civilizations had shown too much potential and been removed from the galactic community. "They're not maintaining peace," she told Jake when she showed him the evidence. "They're maintaining control. Every species that might challenge their authority gets eliminated." Jake studied the files with growing anger. "So we're not the first." "No," Maya replied, "but maybe we can be the last." Outside Earth's atmosphere, long-range sensors detected the first Council patrol ships taking positions at the edge of the solar system. The quarantine had begun. Humanity was officially cut off from the rest of the galaxy. But in secret facilities around Earth and its colonies, human scientists and engineers were already working on something the Council had never seen before. If the aliens wanted to play by their old rules, humanity would simply have to change the game entirely. 5 years had passed since the Council expelled humanity from the galaxy. Captain Roy Fletcher stood on the bridge of the colony ship New Horizon, watching the stars ahead. Behind him, 19 other massive vessels carried 50,000 human colonists toward an uncertain future. Today they would break through the Council blockade and prove that humanity could not be caged. Council patrol ships detected at Grid 77, reported Lieutenant Nina Brooks from her sensor station. 12 vessels in standard formation. They're moving to intercept. Roy smiled grimly. The Council ships were exactly where his intelligence. Reports said they would be predictable as always. Signal the fleet. Execute breakthrough protocol on my mark. The human ships had been built in secret over the past 4 years. Unlike the bulky Council vessels that relied on brute force and heavy armor, these colony ships were sleek and fast. Dr. Rick Torres had designed their quantum drive systems to outrun anything the aliens could field. Enemy ships are charging weapons, Nina reported. They're broadcasting surrender demands on all frequencies. Ignore them, Roy ordered. All ships, prepare for quantum jump in 10 seconds. The Council commander had probably never seen a human. Ships simply vanished before. One moment 20 massive vessels were flying toward his patrol line. The next moment they were gone, reappearing 50,000 kilometers past his position and accelerating away at impossible speeds. Jump successful, Nina announced with obvious excitement. All ships reporting green status. The Council vessels. Can't match our speed? Roy nodded with satisfaction. Set course for the frontier zones. Time to see what they've been hiding from us. The frontier zones were vast sectors of space that the Council had declared too dangerous for colonization. According to their records, these regions were filled with hostile environments, dangerous radiation, and deadly alien creatures. Every species in the galaxy had been taught to avoid them. Lieutenant Brooks made the first real discovery 3 days into their journey. Captain, I'm reading massive mineral deposits on the 4th planet of the Kepler system. The readings are off the charts. Roy studied the sensor data with growing amazement. This world has more rare metals than our entire solar system. Sir, Nina added, I'm also detecting what looks like ruins on the surface. Artificial structures that appear to be millions of years old. The colony fleet established humanity's first independent settlement on the planet they named New Denver. Within weeks, it became clear that the Council had lied about everything. The frontier zones weren't dangerous wastelands. They were treasure houses full of resources and habitable worlds that the Council wanted to keep for themselves. Dr. Maya Singh arrived on the second wave of colony ships with a team of xenobiologists and archaeologists. Her job was to study the ancient ruins that dotted the planet's surface. What she found changed everything humanity thought they knew about galactic history. These structures are definitely artificial, she told the Colonial Council during her first briefing. But they're not from any species currently in the Council. The architecture and technology are completely different. Governor Lisa Chun, the elected leader of New Denver, studied the holographic displays Maya had prepared. How old are they? At least 5 million years, Maya replied, possibly older. But here's the interesting part. I've found similar ruins on 3 other worlds in this sector, all abandoned, all showing signs of sudden evacuation rather than gradual decline. Back on Earth, engineer Rick Torres was perfecting humanity's greatest secret weapon. The Council. Species all used artificial intelligence systems, but theirs were limited by rigid programming and inflexible logic patterns. Human AI was different because it was designed to learn and adapt just like its creators. The key insight, Rick explained to General Davis during a classified briefing, is that our AI doesn't just follow pre-programmed responses. It actually thinks. It creates new strategies based on incomplete information and learns from every encounter. General Davis watched a demonstration where human AI systems easily defeated Council tactical programs in simulated combat. How long before we can deploy this technology? The first combat-ready systems will be online within 6 months, Rick replied. But sir, there's something else. Our long-range monitoring stations have detected Council fleet movements. They're assembling a major force. The Council's response was predictable. War Prime Krelthus of the Saurian Empire had been given command of the Hegemony Fleet with orders to stop human expansion by any means necessary. His armada consisted of over 200 warships, representing the combined military might of 6 different species. Captain Roy Fletcher received the warning while his ship was exploring the outer edge of the Kepler Nebula. His small patrol group of 12 vessels was about to face an enemy force 20 times their size. Sir, reported Nina Brooks, now his executive officer, massive fleet signatures emerging from hyperspace. Council identification codes confirmed. They're surrounding us. Roy studied the tactical display calmly. Traditional military doctrine said his tiny force should surrender or flee. But humanity had stopped following traditional doctrine the day they were kicked out of the Council. Signal all ships, he ordered. Activate adaptive combat protocols. Let's show them what humans do when backed into a corner. The Battle of Kepler's Edge began when War Prime Krelthus demanded humanity's surrender over open communications. His translator made his voice sound harsh and commanding. Human vessels, you are in violation of Council space. Surrender immediately, and your crews will be treated according to galactic law. Roy's response was simple. This is Captain Fletcher of the human fleet. We reject your authority and claim this region by right of discovery. If you want us to leave, you'll have to make us. The Council fleet attacked in perfect formation, just as their tactical manuals prescribed. Massive dreadnoughts advanced in straight lines, while smaller vessels provided covering fire. It was exactly the kind of battle they had fought successfully for thousands of years, against dozens of different species. But humans didn't fight like other species. Captain Beth Parker commanded the human ship Liberty and demonstrated tactics that no Council officer had ever imagined. Instead of meeting the enemy head-on, her ship dove beneath the Council formation and attacked from unexpected angles. Her weapons targeted specific systems rather than trying to overwhelm enemy shields. Through brute force. Commander Steve Wilson led the fighter squadrons in an innovation that terrified the Council forces. His pilots deployed autonomous attack drones controlled by AI systems that learned from every hit they took. When a drone was destroyed, its final data burst updated all the others, making them harder to kill. The Council's energy shields had been designed to stop directed energy weapons and explosive missiles. They were completely useless against kinetic projectiles fired at near-light speed. Human railguns punched through alien armor like it was paper. War Prime Krelthus watched, his fleet dissolve around him with growing horror. His tactical officers couldn't predict human movements because the humans weren't following any recognizable pattern. Each ship seemed to operate independently while somehow coordinating perfectly with the others. They fight like madmen, his communications officer reported. Our ships can't lock onto them. Their weapons are penetrating our shields. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the entire Council fleet had been destroyed with only 3 human casualties. War Prime Krelthus broadcast his final message before his flagship exploded. Warning to all Council forces. The humans do not fight like any species we have encountered. They fight like the universe itself is their enemy, and they refuse to lose. News of the victory spread across human space within days. On New Denver, the colonists celebrated in the streets. On Earth, President Hamilton called an emergency session of Congress. In secret facilities throughout the solar system, engineers worked around the clock to build more ships and weapons. Dr. Maya Singh made Another discovery in the ruins of Kepler 442b that changed humanity's understanding of their situation. Hidden in a sealed chamber, she found records from the vanished civilization that had built the ancient cities. They were called the architects, she reported to the colonial government. And according to these records, they were expelled from the galactic community just like us. The Council has been doing this for millions of years. Governor Chun studied the translated documents with growing anger. How many species have they eliminated? At least 17 that I can identify from these records, Maya replied. Every civilization that showed too much independence or innovation was removed. Their worlds were marked as forbidden zones to hide the evidence. The implications were staggering. The Council hadn't been maintaining peace and stability. They had been systematically eliminating any species that might challenge their control. Humanity was just the latest target in a campaign of genocide that had lasted for millions of years. President Hamilton's response was broadcast across the galaxy on every available frequency. Her message was simple but revolutionary. People of the galaxy, she began, the Council has lied to you for thousands of years. They claim to maintain peace, but they maintain stagnation. They claim to protect civilization, but they destroy any culture that refuses to bow to their authority. The news of humanity's victory at Kepler's edge spread through the galaxy like wildfire. On a dozen different worlds, species that had accepted Council rule for centuries began to question their chains. The first to act were the Zephyrians, master. Engineers who had watched their civilization stagnate under Council restrictions for over 1,000 years. Commander Alex Grant was leading a human diplomatic mission to the Zephyrian homeworld when their government made contact. The blue-skinned aliens had always been peaceful traders, but their messages carried a tone of desperation that surprised him. Commander Grant, transmitted Chancellor Vex-High from the planet's surface, we have monitored your recent conflict with the Council fleet. We wish to discuss matters of mutual interest. Alex's ship descended through the atmosphere of Zephyria Prime, a world of floating cities connected by graceful bridges that defied gravity. The Zephyrians had built these marvels centuries ago, but the Council had forbidden them from sharing the technology with other species. Your people have accomplished something we thought impossible, Chancellor Vex-High explained as they met in the capital's council chamber. You defeated a full Council battle fleet with only 12 ships. How? Alex smiled and activated a holographic display showing human terraforming equipment. We stopped fighting by their rules and started making our own. But more importantly, we're willing to share our knowledge with anyone who wants to learn. The Zephyrian leaders studied the human technology with obvious excitement. Their own terraforming methods were primitive compared to what humanity had developed in just 5 years of independence. The Council has kept us isolated for generations, admitted Engineer Thelmer. They claimed it was for our own protection. But we see now that it was to prevent us from advancing beyond their control. Within days, the Zephyrian government officially withdrew from the Council and requested human protection. Their advanced engineering skills, combined with human innovation, produced immediate results. The floating cities of Zephyria became massive shipyards, producing vessels that neither species could have built alone. The Council's response was swift and brutal. Saurian warships blockaded the Zephyrian system while Council propaganda broadcasts denounced the aliens as traitors to galactic peace. But the blockade lasted only 3 days before Captain Beth Parker arrived with a newly formed human defense fleet. Council vessels, she transmitted on all frequencies. You are blockading the sovereign territory of our allies. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The Saurian fleet commander made the mistake of believing his 40 ships could defeat the 15 human vessels approaching his position. The battle was over in less than an hour. Human weapons technology had advanced dramatically since Kepler's edge. And their new Zephyrian allies provided tactical support that caught the Council forces completely off guard. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Maria Santos was leading a very different kind of mission. Intelligence reports had revealed the existence of Council slave worlds in the Outer Rim, places where primitive species were kept in bondage to provide labor for more advanced civilizations. These are the Keth, explained Dr. Maya Singh as their ships approached the third planet of the Rigel system. The Council classified them as too primitive for membership, but they've been used as workers for over 2,000 years. Maria studied the planet through her ship's sensors. Massive mining operations scarred the surface while primitive humanoid creatures labored under the supervision of Montari overseers. The insect-like aliens used neural control devices to keep their slaves docile and obedient. How many Keth are down there? Maria asked. Approximately 12 million, Maya replied. They're actually quite intelligent when not suppressed by the control devices. Their species developed agriculture and metallurgy before the Council arrived and enslaved them. The liberation of Rigel III took exactly 6 hours. The Montari supervisors had never imagined that anyone would challenge their right to use slave labor. Their security forces were designed to suppress primitive Keth uprisings, not fight modern human soldiers. Maria's troops disabled the neural control network within the first hour. The Keth workers suddenly found themselves free for the first time in their lives, able to think and act independently. Their reaction surprised everyone. "We will fight," declared Keth leader Groktar when Maria offered to evacuate his people to safety. "Our children have been born in chains. Our ancestors died in chains. Today, we break the chains forever." The Keth proved to be fierce warriors once they were properly equipped and trained. Their knowledge of Montari weaknesses helped human forces liberate 6 more slave worlds within a month. Each victory brought new allies and new resources to humanity's growing coalition. On Earth, General Paul Baker was overseeing humanity's most ambitious project yet. The Genesis Initiative represented a completely new approach to galactic colonization. Instead of fighting over existing worlds, humans would create new ones. "The concept is simple," he explained to President Hamilton during a classified briefing. "We take dead worlds or asteroids and transform them into thriving ecosystems. Each Genesis ship carries everything needed to seed a planet with life and build a civilization from scratch." The first Genesis ship was the size of a small moon and carried over 1 million colonists in suspended animation. Its manufacturing facilities could produce anything from farming equipment to warships using raw materials mined from asteroids. Most importantly, it carried the complete genetic database of Earth's biosphere, allowing humans to create new worlds that felt like home. "How long until the first ship is operational?" Hamilton asked. 3 months, Baker replied. "But ma'am, we're getting reports that the Council is mobilizing everything they have for a final assault on our home system." The intelligence was accurate. Council War Admiral Vexmore had been given supreme command of every military vessel in the galaxy. 11 different species had contributed ships to the Great Armada, creating a fleet of over 10,000 warships. Their mission was simple: destroy humanity at its source and end the rebellion before it could spread further. "The human infection must be stopped," Vexmore declared at the fleet's assembly point near the galactic core. "They have corrupted loyal species and turned them against the natural order. We will burn their worlds and scatter their ashes to the void." The Great Armada began its journey toward the Sol system with fanfare and ceremony. Council propaganda broadcasts promised that humanity's rebellion would end within days of the fleet's arrival. The other species watched and waited to see if their ancient rulers could restore order to the galaxy. But humanity had not been idle during the 5 years since their expulsion. Engineer Kevin Murphy had spent those years designing the Sol defense grid, a network of automated defense platforms that represented the pinnacle of human and Zephyrian technology. Each platform is essentially an artificial intelligence housed in a weapons system, Kevin explained to Admiral Janet Phillips as she reviewed the defenses from Mars Command. They can learn and adapt to any threat in real time. More importantly, they're powered directly by the sun's energy, giving them effectively unlimited ammunition. The platforms were invisible to most sensors, hidden in the asteroid belt, on the dark sides of moons throughout the solar system. Each one was connected to the others through quantum communication links, allowing them to coordinate their actions instantly across billions of kilometers. How many platforms are operational? Admiral Phillips asked. Over 15,000, Kevin replied with obvious pride. Each one is capable of engaging multiple capital ships simultaneously. The system is designed to learn from every attack and share that knowledge instantly with all other platforms. The Great Armada arrived at the edge of the Sol system exactly when human intelligence predicted. Council scouts reported that humanity's home worlds appeared lightly defended, with only a few patrol ships visible near the outer planets. War Admiral Dexmore was suspicious of the apparent lack of resistance. "Where are their fleets?" he demanded. Intelligence reports suggested they had hundreds of warships. "Perhaps they have retreated to the inner system," suggested his tactical officer. "They may be planning to make their final stand around there." Homeworld. The Council fleet advanced in perfect formation, just as their battle doctrines prescribed. Massive dreadnoughts led the way, while smaller vessels provided support and screening. It was an impressive sight that had intimidated dozens of species into surrender over the centuries. They were still 50 million kilometers from Earth when the Sol defense grid came online. The first indication of trouble was when Council long range sensors began reporting targeting locks from sources they couldn't identify. Then the platforms began firing. Unlike the energy weapons favored by most species, the human defense grid used kinetic projectiles, accelerated to tremendous velocities by magnetic fields. The platforms could fire continuously without depleting their ammunition because they manufactured new projectiles from asteroid material in real time. More devastating was the grid's ability to learn and adapt. Each platform analyzed the defensive capabilities of every enemy ship it engaged, then shared that data with all the others. News of the Great Armada's destruction spread across the galaxy within hours. On 1,000 different worlds, species that had lived under Council rule for millennia suddenly realized that their ancient masters were not invincible. The revolution that followed changed the galaxy forever. Vorthek were the first major species to officially join humanity's alliance. War Chief Graphic had watched the Battle of Sol through long-range sensors, and what he saw convinced him that his people's future lay with the humans rather than the dying Council. "Your species fights with honor," he told Ambassador Jake Morrison during their first meeting on Unity Station. The Council grew weak through centuries of easy victories over inferior opponents. "You have shown them the strength that comes from facing real challenges." Jake studied the reptilian warrior with respect. The Vorthek had been the Council's primary military force for over 2,000 years, but their rigid honor code made them natural allies once they switched sides. "We welcome your people to the Free Alliance," Jake replied. "But we need more than military support. We need to build something that can last for centuries, not just win the current war." The Vorthek brought with them detailed intelligence about Council military installations and the locations of species still loyal to the old regime. More importantly, they provided legitimacy to humanity's cause. If even the Council's own enforcers were abandoning them, how could other species justify continued loyalty? Captain Maria Santos was leading the liberation of the Outer Rim worlds when she received word that the Zephyrian engineering corps had developed new terraforming technology. The combination of human innovation and alien expertise was producing results faster than anyone had imagined possible. We can now transform a dead world into a garden in less than 5 years, reported Chief Engineer Vexley during a holographic conference from Zephyria Prime. The new atmospheric processors are 3 times more efficient than our previous designs. Maria looked out at the barren planet below her ship. Kepler 438b had been stripped of its atmosphere by mining operations centuries ago, leaving nothing but a rocky wasteland. But with the new technology, it could become home to millions of beings within a decade. "How many worlds can we terraform simultaneously?" she asked. "With our current production capacity, we can begin work on 12 worlds per year," Vexley replied. "But if we convert more industrial facilities to terraforming equipment production, we could double or triple that number." The terraforming project represented humanity's vision for the galaxy's future. Instead of fighting over existing resources, they would create new ones. Instead of keeping species trapped on their homeworlds, they would give them the tools to spread throughout the stars. On Earth, Dr. Maya Singh was analyzing data from the ancient ruins found throughout the frontier zones. Her discoveries were rewriting the history of galactic civilization and revealing the true scope of the Council's crimes. The architects weren't the only ones, she explained to President Hamilton during a classified briefing. "I've found evidence of at least 30 different advanced civilizations that were eliminated by the Council over the past 5 million years." The holographic display showed a map of the galaxy with markers indicating the locations of dead worlds and abandoned star systems. Each marker represented a species that had shown too much independence or innovation and been destroyed. To preserve Council power, they called it the Stability Protocol, Maya continued. Any species that developed faster than light travel was monitored. If they showed signs of becoming a threat to Council authority, they were eliminated through manufactured conflicts or economic warfare. President Hamilton studied the data with growing horror. How many billions of lives were lost? Conservative estimates suggest over 2 trillion beings across all the eliminated species, Maya replied. The Council has been committing genocide on a galactic scale for millions of years. The revelation was broadcast throughout human space and shared with every allied species. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. The Council hadn't been maintaining peace and stability. They had been systematically murdering any civilization that might challenge their control. The psychological impact on neutral species was devastating. Governments that had loyally served the Council for centuries suddenly realized they were supporting mass murderers. Defections accelerated as entire star systems abandoned their former masters and requested protection from the Free Alliance. But not all Council species were willing to accept the new reality. The Saurian Empire, Montari Collective, and 3 other species formed what they called the True Council, dedicated to preserving the old ways regardless of the cost. General Paul Baker was overseeing the deployment of humanity's Genesis ships. When intelligence reports warned of a massive military buildup in True Council space, the remaining loyalist species were preparing for one final campaign to restore their authority. "They're converting civilian ships into warships," reported Colonel Steve Wilson during a strategic planning meeting. "Intelligence estimates they can field over 3,000 vessels within 6 months." Baker studied the tactical displays with concern. The True Council fleet would be larger than any force humanity had faced since the Great Armada. But numbers weren't everything, as the Council had learned repeatedly. "What's our current military strength?" he asked. "The Free Alliance can deploy approximately 1,500 ships," Wilson replied. "But our allied species are contributing forces as well. The Vorthic alone are providing 200 heavy cruisers. More importantly, humanity's shipbuilding capabilities had expanded dramatically since the war began. The orbital shipyards around Earth were producing new vessels at a rate the Council had never achieved. More shipyards were under construction around every major human colony and allied world. The first Genesis ship launched while the true Council was still building their fleet. The massive vessel carried 1 million colonists toward an empty star system on the galactic rim, where they would build humanity's first completely artificial world. "This represents everything we're fighting for," President Hamilton declared during the launch ceremony. "Not just the right to exist, but the right to grow and create and explore without limits." The Genesis project symbolized the fundamental difference between humanity's vision and the Council's philosophy. Where the Council sought to preserve existing structures and prevent change, humans offered growth and possibility to anyone willing to reach for it. Captain Roy Fletcher was exploring the far edges of former Council space when his scouts discovered something that changed everything. Hidden in a nebula near the galactic core was a massive installation that didn't appear on any Council chart. "It's definitely artificial," reported Lieutenant Nia Brooks from her sensor station. "But the construction methods are unlike anything we've seen from any known species." Roy studied the readings with growing excitement. The installation was enormous, easily the size of a small planet, and appeared to be some kind of monitoring station or observatory. "Can you determine its age?" he asked. "Preliminary scans suggest it's been here for at least 10 million years, Nina replied. "But sir, there's something else. The installation is still active. I'm detecting power sources and what looks like active sensor arrays." The Discovery team that entered the installation found wonders beyond imagination. The builders, whoever they were, had created a repository of knowledge spanning millions of years of galactic history. Most shocking of all, they had been watching the Council's crimes for eons. "These are the Watchers," Dr. Maya Singh explained. After studying the installation's records for weeks, they're the survivors of the first species the Council ever eliminated. They've been hiding here for 10 million years, documenting every genocide and waiting for someone capable of stopping it. The Watcher archives contain detailed records of every species the Council had destroyed, along with preserved samples of their DNA and cultural artifacts. It was a museum of galactic civilization that the Council had tried to erase, but the most important discovery was the Watchers' warning about what was coming. Deep in their records was evidence of an ancient threat that had once consumed entire galaxies before being driven back into the void between stars. "They call them the Devourers," Maya reported to the Alliance leadership. "Machine intelligences from another galaxy that arrived here 50 million years ago. The Watchers' ancestors helped drive them away, but they're returning. Long range. Sensors throughout the galaxy were already detecting the first signs. Strange energy signatures at the edge of explored space. Ships and colonies going silent without explanation. The enemy that had once destroyed civilizations was stirring again. Admiral Janet Phillips studied the intelligence reports with growing concern. "How long do we have?" "The Watcher calculations suggest the main Devourer fleet will arrive within 10 years, Maya replied. "But advanced scouts are already here. They're testing our defenses and learning about current galactic civilization." The revelation changed everything. The war between the Free Alliance and the True Council suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the threat facing all organic life in the galaxy. But the True Council refused to acknowledge the danger, dismissing the Watcher warnings as human propaganda. The first Devourer attack came without warning. Captain Danny Hayes was leading a routine patrol along the galactic rim when his sensors detected something that shouldn't exist. Ships emerged from the void between galaxies, their hulls black, as space itself and radiating cold that seemed to drain the warmth from nearby stars. "Unknown vessels, identify yourselves," Danny transmitted on all frequencies. The response came not in words, but in action. Beams of pure entropy struck his. Ships' shields, weapons designed to unmake matter at the quantum level. All ships evasive action, Danny ordered as his fleet scattered. These aren't council vessels. Signal Alliance Command. Tell them the Watchers were right. The Devourer ships moved with mechanical precision, their formations perfect and unchanging. They had been built for one purpose: consuming organic civilizations and converting their resources into more machines. For 50 million years, they had perfected this process across dozens of galaxies, but they had never encountered anything like human adaptive technology. Admiral Janet Phillips received the alert while inspecting the new defense platforms around Unity Station. The automated systems that had destroyed the Great Armada were already analyzing the scene, Devourer weapons and developing countermeasures. Enemy technology appears to be based on quantum disruption fields, reported engineer Kevin Murphy from his command center. Our standard shields are only partially effective, but the AI systems are already working on modifications. Janet studied the tactical displays with grim determination. How long until we have effective countermeasures? The first adaptive shield upgrades will be ready within 6 hours, Kevin replied. But Admiral, these machines are learning too. Every exchange gives them data about our capabilities. The race between human innovation and Devourer adaptation began immediately. Alliance engineers worked frantically to develop new weapons and defenses, while the ancient machines probed deeper into galactic space, testing every system they encountered. President Hamilton convened an emergency session of the Alliance Council. As reports flooded in from across the galaxy, the Devourers weren't just attacking military targets. They were systematically harvesting entire star systems, stripping planets of all organic matter, and converting the raw materials into more machines. We're facing an enemy that has consumed entire galaxies, she told the assembled delegates. This isn't a war for territory or resources. This is a war for the right of organic life to exist. The Vorthic War Chief Graphic rose from his seat, his reptilian features set in determination. My people have faced extinction before. We did not yield then, and we will not yield now. Every Vorthic ship and warrior stands ready for battle. Similar declarations came from every Alliance species. The Zephyrians pledged their engineering expertise to developing new weapons. The former slave races of the Outer Rim offered their knowledge of guerrilla warfare. Even the aquatic depths dwellers emerged from their ocean worlds to join the fight. Dr. Maya Singh worked with the Watcher archives to understand how the Devourers had been defeated before. The ancient records painted a grim picture of a war that had lasted thousands of years and left entire sectors of the galaxy empty and lifeless. The key was unity, she reported to the Alliance leadership. Every organic species in the galaxy worked together, sharing their technology and knowledge without reservation. But even then, victory came at an enormous cost. The historical records showed that the previous war had been won through sacrifice on an unimaginable scale. Entire species had voluntarily transformed themselves into living weapons, giving up their physical forms to become energy beings capable of fighting the machines in dimensions beyond normal space. We need a different approach, President Hamilton declared. The Watchers fought the Devourers to a standstill, but they couldn't destroy them permanently. We need to find a way to end this threat forever. The answer came from an unexpected source. Captain Roy Fletcher was exploring the deepest regions of Watcher space when his ship's sensors detected massive energy signatures hidden within a collapsed star system. It's a construction project, reported Lieutenant Nina Brooks with obvious amazement. Something the size of a small planet, but completely artificial. The Watchers had spent 50 million years preparing for the Devourer's return. Hidden in the gravitational shadows of dead stars, they had built weapons beyond the comprehension of any organic species. Most impressive was the Genesis engine, a device capable of creating new stars and planets from pure energy. They weren't just preserving knowledge, Maya realized as she studied the Watcher technology. They were preparing to restart galactic civilization from scratch, if necessary. But the Genesis engine had another purpose. The Watchers had discovered that the Devourers drew their power from the quantum vacuum between galaxies. If that connection could be severed, the machines would be reduced to lifeless metal drifting in space. The plan required unprecedented cooperation between organic and artificial intelligence. Human AI systems would merge with Watcher technology to create a quantum disruption field spanning the entire galaxy. The field would cut the Devourers off from their power source while leaving organic life unaffected. Admiral Danny Hayes, promoted after his successful first contact with the Devourers, led the Alliance fleet in the largest military operation in galactic history. Over 10,000 ships representing 70 different species converged on the galactic core, where the Devourer main fleet was emerging from interdimensional space. Remember, he transmitted to all Alliance forces, we're not just fighting for our own species. We're fighting for the right of life itself to exist in this galaxy. The Battle of the Galactic Core began when Devourer dreadnoughts the size of moons opened fire on the Alliance fleet. Their entropy weapons could dissolve entire ships in seconds, but human adaptive shields had evolved far beyond their original designs. Captain Beth Parker commanded the human battle group with tactics that confused even the Devourer's ancient programming. Her ships moved in patterns that seemed random, but were actually calculated by AI systems to exploit tiny flaws in enemy formations. The Vorthic heavy cruisers charged directly into the Devourer formations, their honor-bound warriors, seeking glorious death in combat with the galaxy's ultimate enemy. But they were supported by Zephyrian engineering ships that could repair damage faster than the machines could inflict it. Commander Steve Wilson led fighter squadrons in attacks that no organic pilot could have survived. His ships were controlled by merged human AI consciousness that could react at the speed of thought and coordinate with machine precision. But the real battle was happening in dimensions beyond normal space. The Alliance's greatest scientists and the Watcher survivors worked together to activate the Genesis engine, creating a quantum disruption field that would sever the Devourers' connection to their power source. Dr. Maya Singh monitored the field generation from Unity Station while the battle raged around the galactic core. Field strength at 60% and rising, she reported. But the Devourers are adapting faster than we anticipated. The ancient machines had faced quantum disruption before and developed countermeasures. Their hive consciousness was working to maintain their power connection while simultaneously overwhelming the Alliance fleet through sheer numbers. President Hamilton watched the battle from Earth's command center, knowing that the fate of all organic life hung in the balance. How long until the field reaches full strength? 17 minutes, Maya replied. But Admiral Hayes reports that Alliance losses are mounting rapidly. The Devourers are throwing everything they have at our fleet. A tide of battle turned when the most unexpected allies joined the fight. The Saurian Empire, last remnant of the old council, emerged from hyperspace with every ship they could muster. Their leader's transmission was broadcast across the galaxy. We have fought the humans and lost, declared Saurian War Prime Velther. But we will not see organic life extinguished by machines. Today, all species fight as one. Even the isolated Montari joined the battle, their insect-like ships swarming over Devourer formations like angry hornets. Species that had been enemies for centuries fought side by side against the ultimate threat to their existence. The Genesis engine reached full power just as the Alliance fleet was about to be overwhelmed. The quantum disruption field expanded. At the speed of light, washing over every Devourer ship in the galaxy and severing their connection to the energy sources. Between galaxies, the effect was immediate and total. Across thousands of star systems, Devourer ships simply stopped functioning and drifted powerless in space. The machines that had consumed entire galaxies were reduced to inert metal in seconds. Admiral Hayes broadcast the victory to every world. In the galaxy, the Devourer threat has been eliminated. Organic life is safe, but the war's end brought new challenges. The galaxy had been devastated by centuries of conflict, and billions of beings needed new homes. The Alliance's response was swift and generous. The Genesis Project was expanded to unprecedented levels. Hundreds of artificial worlds were created to house refugees from the war zones. Former Council species found themselves welcomed as equals. In the new galactic community, their past crimes forgiven in exchange for cooperation in rebuilding.